Hello and welcome back to another Doctor Who action figure review. I hope you're all well. In today's review I'm going to be taking a look at the latest Character Options online exclusive, which rather excitingly is the 14th Doctor and the Meep from the Star Beast. This is apparently the second of 5 exclusive Vortex editions that we're going to be getting this year. As per usual, the figure set comes packaged in a rather sturdy corrugated cardboard box. It doesn't come with a copy of the Star Beast target, that's just me hiding the address. Now the actual packaging is gorgeous. It's a really lovely use of the style guide, of course 14th Doctor era specific. In the bottom corner we have the title of the set as well, stating that it is a Vortex edition. The graphic of the TARDIS looks very pretty as always. It's from the 14th Doctor era, Character Options logo in the bottom corner. Just above this, a little features bubble, part of the 5.5/14cm scale collector series. Due to it being a Vortex edition, it's also got high deco apparently. The whole layout of the box is very similar to some of the previous releases with the bubbles and things and the slight cutout at the side. I am absolutely loving the rainbow with the reds, yellows and various different shades of blue. It is incredibly eye-catching and it absolutely makes me want to see more 14th Doctor merch in the future. Due to the larger and more varied contents, of course the D has been extended, so it's no longer a D shape, it's a slightly longer box. But again, much like the 15th Doctor, this is a really lovely packaged action figure if you're a boxed collector. It shows off everything within the packaging. Meep is really nicely displayed here in the bottom half. Above this we have the alternative hands and swappable head. It reminds me of the Star Wars Black Series, despite me having never got one of those action figures or watched Star Wars for that matter. And we also have a clear look at the 14th Doctor there as well. Opposite to the cutout at the side you have the 60th anniversary logo. It's relatively small, but you can't exactly miss that it's a Doctor Who product, especially because this fact is basically repeated on every other side of the box. Always, I quite like this, it contrasts with the white background well. The bottom of the box has some company information. Turning around to the back is a very similar layout to usual. Doctor Who logo, a lovely shiny sticker. Contents is clearly listed, so again it feels like a collector's item. I really like that it features a quote from the story as well as a little bit of explanation as to what Vortex Edition actually means. A massive chunk of text there on the back as well, going into detail about the story. It would have been nice to have a few pictures of tiny, and I mean tiny, little nitpick that I noticed, and probably a critique that you won't get in any other Doctor Who action figure review. One of the paragraphs opens with donning a magistrate's wig. The Doctor holds an impromptu trial between the Meep and the Wraith warriors. In the episode, David Tennant is kind of mimicking the role of a barrister or a judge, who generally are the ones that have the right reserve to wear the wigs in the UK, generally not magistrates. In fairness, he does also quote the Shadow Proclamation, so I'm less familiar with their jurisdiction. So I have to put the Masters in Space Slaw to some use. Let me have this moment at least. This is what happens when you get a law graduate reviewing Doctor Who action figures in their spare time. I have the return of the cardboard background for this set as well, which is very welcome. Meep ship within the factory from the opening scenes of the story and the end. I know some will just see this as cardboard, I mean it is, but I think it really adds something to the product, and it was a great loss when they stopped doing them with the B&M exclusive line. Absolutely love this 2-pack. It is the most fun that I've had with an action figure set in quite a number of years. 15 and Ruby Vortex editions felt like character moving into a new era, really putting in a lot of focus to the collector's aspect, the smaller details. This set feels like character putting in a similar level of quality but having fun with it. It feels like the mid-2000s level of creativity. So it's Beep the Meep or just the Meep. Either way, one of the best action figures that Character Options have created in years. I'm absolutely delighted by this one. Much play value with this action figure. I think one of the only criticisms that I can give it is that it's such a shame it's not on the shelves of toy shops, because I feel like a younger Doctor Who fan who's perhaps less aware of online releases would adore this release. Character Options don't exactly have a great track record of Doctor Who action figures that are in static positions, such as the original Rose or Disco Dancing Ninth Doctor, but this release is perfect. With a swappable head, with quite the collective of swappable hands, this figure has a lot to offer. So the Meep is of course in a crouched position. The entirety of the lower half is one solid piece, including a rather chunky spherical belly. The legs also point outwards in a folded position. This does mean that the Meep is permanently squatting, unlike on screen, but I don't mind. I think it's the most appropriate pose for both expressions of head. Detail-wise, you could argue that the figure doesn't actually have that much going for it. It's just the same repeated details. This lovely fur pattern, the majority is this rather sharp white, but there are a number of smaller paint apps throughout, like cream and darker greys, which I think absolutely makes this figure look visually more interesting. Hair looks very fluffy, the fur on the sides is a bit more jagged and pointed. Cream wash in between the legs also makes the knees stand out a little bit more, it gives the figure more depth. All of the hairs do come to a rather abrupt stop around the feet. If anything, it kind of reminds me of a weird chicken. And the feet themselves, along with the toes, are some of the most hideous things that Character Options have ever sculpted. Almost tanned style orangey tint to the base colour of the flesh stands out a lot. Individual toes are like these awful suction cups, complete with little pink highlights. This makes the knuckles, or whatever they are, stand out a lot. All of the company stuff is hidden away on the base of the feet, which is nice. It doesn't detract from the visual appearance of the action figure. To the bottom of the action figure being one solid piece, it does provide a relatively sturdy base for the figure overall, but there is more articulation going on up above, so it can take a bit of practice. There is that waist joint in the middle. This does what it usually does, so it can move all the way around 360. This is also a ball joint, so it can rock from side to side as well as forward and back. It can take a little bit of practice to ensure that the figure isn't too top heavy. Moving further up the Meep now to the central torso, generally we just have the same details repeated. There isn't the wash that you would usually expect when it comes to fur on Character Options action figures. It's white towards the top, but I love this cream banding at the bottom. This also continues onto the back whilst creating this lip, hiding the articulation. The sculpting work on the fur is great, there's not really much that you can do with it, but it's definitely effective. The arms are really well articulated, which really aid posability. They are indeed on a ball joint, so they can move upwards as well as outwards and round. Probably the most that I've used the articulation on a Doctor Who action figure in years. There is also a ball joint at the elbow, although it is mostly obscured, so it can move up and down, well as out to the side, but it is a little bit obstructed. It's because of these flexible pieces of plastic which dangle below the arms, which to be honest I don't mind. Washes of cream do certainly add something to the action figure overall. Even though the angry version of the Meep is the coolest, my favourite is the adorable look, especially with the curved hands. Love the inclusion of the little bandage, the whole position of the fingers too, he looks so deep in thought. The other hand position is also like this, curled around, but we do have some other hands to take a look at as well. I love how they are just looking at them like, yes, the Meep, that is all of your hands. You have all these different poses that you can have. Variety overall is really good. My only concern with the hands is the little rubbery peg. It does feel quite flexible. I think if I gave this to a younger Doctor Who fan, I'd be a little bit worried. For an older collector though, it should be fine. The outstretched hands for the more dramatic poses. These hands give us the best look at the smaller details like the knuckles, almost suction cup style fingertips, certainly best to accompany the more angry head. There is also a more clenched fist, good for holding accessories, generally sporting the same detail to all the rest. It's just less open than the adorable positioned hands, as I'll call them. The most notably different hand is the one holding the gun, which is quite cool. This looks like an adapted knuckle duster with a shiny silver finish. I love how the barrel of the gun pokes out of the fingers, it's really effectively positioned. The hand details are exactly the same. Initially I did think, oh, it's a shame the gun is attached to the hand and it's unremovable, but then again I also thought, well, what's the point? What would you do with the gun when it's removed? So Meep head sculpt number 1 is perfection. Adorable perfection. Facial fur is a bit like the lower legs really, it's rather sharp and jagged, and particularly like how this plumes outwards towards the lower neck. Much like the waist joint, this hides the joint for the head. In the middle we have the rather puffed out cheeks, complete with pink highlights on the nose and mouth. Because of the white fur, this detailing stands out a lot. I also love how the hair smooths out around the nose and the cheeks. One of the paint apps which stands out the most is the ears. I love the sculpting work on these. These soft lines make it appear like stretched skin on bone. Not just a block pink either, there's a few speckles in there, it looks slightly tanned. There's even a slight yellowy hue. It definitely has a high level of paint application overall. The eyes are absolutely adorable, yet very sinister at the same time. This lovely pink highlight running around the side. The way the eye itself has been painted, that glossy shimmer, it looks very damp. It reminds me in fact of a Harrop Buckley statue, so that's quite a compliment. Iris is rather sinister and large in the centre of the eye, and then we have these lovely brown flecks within. Dirty yellowy, sort of creamy hues continue towards the lower half of the neck, complemented with that subtle grey splash going up the middle. As of all good action figures, of course you can snap its head off. There is a ball joint there underneath, of course, to aid posability. Then we can put on the second head, which is of course a true reflection of the Meep personality. This captures so much emotion and energy, but also the presence of the character on screen, they look bloody terrifying. There's a bit more going on, but compliments about the fur remain exactly the same. It's roughly in the same position. Perhaps the cheeks are a little bit more pronounced to aid the mouth expression. Everything else basically remains the same, but they are snarling this time, so the mouth is naturally exposed. The lips have that orangey hue, and we have the abyss of the mouth with a matte black. Paintwork on the teeth is also quite precise. They look sharp. Exactly the same compliments about the eyes. They have a somewhat similar finish, except this time the shape has changed. It had that bewildered look. Now we have squinting, almost triangular, evil eyes. Now if the Meep wasn't exciting enough already, Al has designed, along with Star One props, the Meep Space Pod, which can be downloaded online as a 3D print. It even has an internal computer system and chair. I love it. Sadly, I don't have a 3D printer, but if I did, I'd most certainly be printing this out. It reminds me of the bigger special sets that we used to get in the golden years, like the Cyber Controller Throne, or the Sontaran Space Pod, or the Face of Bo. So there we go, that is the Meep. I absolutely adore this action figure. I love the swappable hands, I love the alternative head. It's an incredibly high detail piece. It's probably one of my favourite figures in years. Before we move on to the 14th Doctor, I'm going to talk a little bit about pricing, because this set was £44.99, and I know that that's caused a little bit of criticism. Personally, I don't actually think the pricing is that bad. I think you get quite a lot for your money. The Meep is a 100% new figure, swappable hands, alternative head. The 14th Doctor is also a decent improvement. I think the issue is these days we're not really moving on from the fact that we're no longer in the mid-2000s anymore. Things cost more. I can pretty much guarantee if this set was made by another company, not only would it be a pain in the arse to start the Doctor Who licence all over again, it would also probably be a lot more money. Gone are the days of getting a Forbidden Planet exclusive 2-pack for £24.99, which features 2 entirely brand new sculpted figures. Like other franchises, Doctor Who also doesn't seem to be in a position anymore where it's attractive to younger fans for action figures and toys, at least not as much as it was. So these are aimed at the collectors, so with that comes a higher price. B&M line is meant to be semi-more affordable, but even then, as the years progress, we are seeing, in my opinion, that line become progressively more and more tired, because there is less that they can do within the budget. Well, this figure may be overshadowed slightly, but the 14th Doctor variant is also a lovely addition to the shelf. Especially now I have this action figure in hand, this jacketless version, I appreciate it more than the initial promo material. At its most basic, this is an improvement on the previous release. It's certainly not a step backwards. It also features an accessory, so I'm happy. If this is what it takes to get the Meep, then I will happily have this action figure. Then again, it's a figure that I did want to see released anyway, so it's a win-win situation. So outfit-wise, let's start off in the very middle, shall we, with that rather eye-catching waistcoat. This is a really impressive sculpt, and it's nice to be able to see it without it being obscured by the giant coat from the previous release. The base white shirt is really nice. I love how sharp the collar is. It comes down diagonally with the tie in the middle. I do like how it also appears that the tie is woven underneath the collar. There is also a splash of white around the back of the neck as well. A bit difficult to pick up on camera, but I love that soft sculpting of the stretch marks within the fabric of the shirt. It certainly makes it look slim fit. Paintwork on the tie is one of my favourite aspects of this action figure. That lighter grey base with the speckled effect over the top using a combination of blacks, whites and darker greys. To me, it reminds me of static on an old TV. I believe this is a wool tie, not one of my personal favourites, but I think it excellently recreates what's seen on screen. The way it pokes out too, it creates that almost dishevelled casual look. The tie paintwork is certainly an improvement on the initial release, which was more speckled and swirly. It definitely didn't match the fabric as well. And speaking of paintwork improvements, I really prefer what they've done with the tartan for this second release. It's nice, don't get me wrong, on the initial version, but everything about it was almost cranked up a few notches. It was a bit too vibrant. Dark brown base looks a lot better. The sculpting work, as always, is delightful. Much like the rest of the outfit, it's very slim fit, but the creasing really helps create that stretched appearance. The way these stretch marks convene around the buttons. Little pocket lid detailing as well, which was mostly obscured on the previous release. This is present on either side. The lapels are nicely risen above the rest of the fabric. I think due to the patterning, they are a little bit lost, but if anything, that's a critique of the outfit itself rather than the action figure. As for the patterning itself now, I think this has been excellently achieved within the 5.5 scale. It doesn't stand out as much as the previous version. On this one, you basically couldn't miss the checkered design. This time the checkered pattern is slightly more lost within the outfit, but I prefer that. It looks really nice. I particularly love the purpley highlights. Glossy black on the buttons. The paintwork here feels more crisp than the previous release, which perhaps felt a bit slapped on. In fact, the waistcoat is only buttoned there at the top. It adds to this dishevelled look. It looks imperfect. It looks a little bit rugged, and it's everything the first 10th Doctor action figure wasn't. A figure which was too neatly buttoned, too perfect, and everything too symmetrical and aligned. Due to the long coat on the initial release, we didn't get any glimpse at all to the back of the waistcoat, but funnily enough, it's a similar colour blue. Sculpting wise, it's simple but effective. The fabric stitching lines ring around the top of the arms, as well as around the neck and shoulders. The move between the front panel and the back of the waistcoat is also quite seamless. The creases continue, it looks quite neat. There's the occasional dimple and wrinkle here and there, but not too much, as all of this is reserved for the lower bottom strap. We have a few more creases. It's nicely fitted to the body. Certainly a bonus point for the small highlight of silver there on the buckle. The base of this is a rather lovely darker blue, but an inky wash has been applied over the top, giving it this velvety appearance, or even that delightful shimmer that you tend to get with waistcoats. It looks lovely. I'm sure I can recall within my review the first 14th Doctor within the Regeneration set that I would have liked to have a wash on the coat, just to make it look a bit less blocky. Certainly think that the coat could have looked a lot more interesting. Unlike the Meep, which is of course an entirely brand new figure, the only new thing sculpting wise with the 14th Doctor is the arms. Unlike in Wild Blue yonder, these arms are the correct normal humanoid length. But if you were wanting a 14th Doctor with freakishly long arms, Gallifrey Customs has released the 3D files so you can print them out if you know someone with a 3D printer, or alternatively a wizard, and you can attach them to your 14th Doctor, which I just think is a wonderful use of technology. For those of us who grew up in the mid-2000s where Customs relied upon solely blue tack and milliput, the way it has evolved is just mind-blowing. New sculpt isn't that exciting, to be honest. It's just a continuation of the white shirt, but it is great that it has been released nevertheless. It has been sculpted in white plastic rather than painted, so no unnecessary paint leaks. The ripples within the fabric look very lifelike, especially the way that it bags underneath the armpit. It's no additional wash, but it doesn't really need it. It also bags in a rather relaxed fashion around the lower arm. It's a very welcome variant to the initial version. This was also the sole opportunity for this action figure to use the Gen 3 articulation, so the arms are also ball jointed. This does create a rather bizarre lump underneath the armpit, but it can't really be helped, especially if you want ball joint articulation. One of the very bizarre things with this unique sculpt is it doesn't particularly look like the appearance of the shirt as seen on screen, which was rolled up a little bit further than what we have here. If anything, the Raggedy Doctor sculpt is probably more accurate, as many people have used in Customs. Am I really that arsed about this? I'll be honest, no, not really. I think it's only visible if you've just watched the episode, so it's vivid within your mind. Don't really know how to explain it, but the sculpt overall does look a little bit generic. Did make me wonder, are character options being a little bit clever here? Have they got another outfit or character entirely in mind that they could repurpose these arms for? Cuff is a rather nice pokey out angular design. Particularly like how it folds inwards towards the back. Being very picky, might be nice to have a slight shaded wash on this, but it really doesn't matter. Hands are just your generic Doctor sculpt really, although they do have the Vortex style finish. One of them is in an open palm position, the fingers are nicely sculpted. Plastic is sculpted in the base colour rather than painted, so this bone work does stand out a lot more than usual. And the other hand, obviously, can hold a sonic screwdriver accessory. She finally comes with, the other guy didn't. It fits very snugly within the hand positioned amongst the fingers and the thumb. It looks very cool. I'm just glad that this mistake has now been rectified. The gap is filled, as the gap was almost as loud and as annoying as the Web of Fear Part 3. Let's have a look at the sonic screwdriver accessory, shall we? Considerably small, but you can most certainly tell what model of sonic it is meant to be. The paint apps are considerably precise, but there's a series of different textures as well, so you can make out the different components. This is the sonic and extended mode, so it does have the spikes coming out the side. It's relatively simple. Got a little blue emitter at the top as well. I'll be honest, I have seen better versions of this sonic in this scale with a lot more detail, but for the mass market, it does the job. Regardless of the detail, I'm just happy that it has been included this time. Now we are all incredibly familiar with the lower half of this action figure, but the paint apps are similar to the 14th Doctor seen within the Regeneration set, but it has seen some very welcome upgrades. But sculpting wise, it is yet another outing for probably one of the most used action figure sculpts of all time. Which is completely fine, it's an effective reuse. It is a slim fit style suit trouser. Crotch section has a number of fabric and stretch marks within. There's certainly less wrinkles on the back, a few more panelled lines with, of course this was obscured by the long coat on the previous release. I am relieved that the lovely tartan patterning does continue around the entire circumference of the waist, unlike some of the previous 10th Doctors that we've seen. Mentally, I am still recovering from this horror show from a few years ago. It wasn't exactly character's finest moment, was it? It is a very effective sculpt. There is lots of creases within, but it still has that tightly fit appearance, including a seam running down the side, natural looking wrinkles around the lower thigh and knee, and this becomes more prominent as we venture down to the lower half of the leg. I do like how the fabric folds, particularly the way that it bags over the Converse. It absolutely hits home that casual nature to the 10th and 14th Doctors. The improvements to the tartan finish are most clear here on the leg, and I think that they've done a really good job. This is seemingly more matte, a lighter brown rather than the sort of reddy hue to the initial 14th Doctor, which I think was certainly a bit too vibrant. No doubt the very determined cosplayers out there will be able to tell me exactly what fabric patterning this is, but I love the way the blacks and the blues have been used to create the checkered design. Printing is incredibly crisp overall. I want to describe this as washed out because it isn't. It's sort of more a subdued colour palette, meaning it looks more authentic to day-to-day suits. The Converse have also seen a paint upgrade, which is very welcome. We've gone on quite a journey with these throughout the years. We've had the creams of Series 2, the rather punchy red of Series 3, and now perhaps it's a more casual sort of light canvas grey. Toe cap and the sole are still a vibrant white. I also like that darker blue trim running around the side. But most importantly, the laces are now also painted a vibrant white, so they stand out a lot more than they previously did. That's because paint was missed off entirely with the initial version, which was quite the shame. Paintwork on these is really sharp, and as always they dangle down the side, which is nice. Due to the sculpting remaining the same, the only Vortex thing about the lower half of the figure is the paintwork. The articulation remains the same as always. So the likeness to David Tennant now is really impressive. Of course it is the same sculpt that was previously used with the other 14th Doctor, but this time the base plastic has been coloured in the skin tone with the smaller details painted on top. And the end result is like night and day. Is a vast improvement from the previous release, with smaller details within the face, such as the definition on the cheekbones, as well as the jawline, just feels a bit more realistic. The lips are painted in a not too over-the-top fashion. It doesn't look like he's wearing lipstick, and the eyes don't seem too lost within the face. Eyebrows are not too caricature either. It's a fairly neutral expression, perhaps a little bit too neutral. This is rather serious overall. That's the really difficult thing with expression. It's a fine line from looking incredibly creepy. 14th Doctor does have a little bit of stubble or a beard within the 60th anniversary. That's not been done here. I think it would have been nice to add something, but it's a risk of it being too much. I'd be interested to see them try and do it someday, but perhaps not with a collector's set with a recommended retail price like this one. I'm loving the way the hair has been done as well. That darker brown base of the lighter wash on top, it really sells the sculpt. Absolutely makes the figure look more exciting. It highlights the various strands, it gives the hair depth. Still not quite sure how I feel about the spike or the quiff. It might be a little bit too over the top, but maybe that's just because it's a 5.5 scale. But absolutely, character options are moving in the right direction. It's exciting seeing the line evolve, and I hope that we get to see these same details applied to more classic Doctors in the future, especially those incarnations that are often more overlooked, like say the 2nd Doctor or 6 and 7. It shows that the line has came a long way since the first 10th Doctor action figure, but maybe in the future it would be nice to see them expand to alternative heads for humanoids as well. Maybe a more neutral head like this one and a more expressive one. So there we go, that is the 14th Doctor and the Meep Vortex edition from the Star Beast. I absolutely love this set. Even though I love the 15th Doctor and Ruby a lot, I feel like this set has so much creativity and fun behind it. I've really enjoyed reviewing it, and the Meep is just adorable and excellent, so I highly recommend this set. I think it could be easy to overlook the 14th Doctor because the Meep is the main focus, but 14 does have some worthy changes as well. It's more than just a re-release or a jacketless variant. I love the improvements to the outfit. Also, the paint application on the face is far superior. Happy with the price tag as well. I think it's quite reasonable, especially given that the Meep is 100% new, plus there's accessories in there. Perhaps maybe an additional exclusive accessory like one of Rose's plushes from her shed. That might have been a nice novelty to add in to bulk it out a bit more. I think ultimately we just need to get used to that higher price tag because we are no longer living in 2007. We need to be realistic. I've loved reviewing this one, and I can't wait to see what the character options exclusive line have in store next. Thank you very much for watching this review. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on the Host Productions for regular Doctor Who reviews, but also more action figure content will be coming in the future as well. And when I say more, I mean lots. There's lots on the way that I've been creating. I'm really looking forward to putting out there. I hope you enjoy it when it comes. So thanks for watching, have a nice day, and I shall see you all next time.